it can ignite, and all you gotta do is bring the light, 'cause a new light shine, 'cause a new light shine.
Shalom, my friends. Eliana Light here. So glad that you have joined us once again for the Light Lab podcast. And today I'm really excited to bring you an interview that I did a few weeks ago with Rabbi Steve Sager. Even just saying Rabbi Sager's name fills me with a little more calm and a little more lightness and a little more love. I met Rabbi Sager here in Durham, North Carolina, as he is the Rabbi Emeritus of Bethel Synagogue, where I've been doing some part-time work, singing with the children and leading some tefillah. And getting to learn from, talk with, and pray with Rabbi Sager has definitely been one of the highlights being in Durham. And so when we started the podcast, I knew that as soon as possible, I would want to have some holy conversations with Rabbi Sager, as conversations are one of the ways that he teaches and learns and engages with Jewish text. In fact, he is the director of Sicha, which means conversation in Hebrew, and they promote the ongoing dialogue between classical Jewish texts and lived experience, helping leaders and communities enlist the Jewish past in the service of the Jewish future. It's just such a beautiful mission statement. And Rabbi Sager really takes that to heart. He was the rabbi at Bethel Synagogue here in Durham for 32 years. He's a graduate of the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College. He has a PhD in Rabbinic Literature from Duke University, and he's been a mentor for students and rabbis from all different rabbinical schools, all different walks of life. I love on my travels when I tell people I'm from Durham, North Carolina, and a particular kind of person will say, "Oh, Rabbi Sager, wow, he has meant so much to me. I love him so much." And it just, it fills me with joy. He's also served as the president of the Reconstructionist Rabbinical Association and of the Greater Carolinas Association of Rabbis. He has done interfaith work. His writing has been published in all sorts of different periodicals. And he also is a scholar of poetry, which I think comes to bear on our conversation about tefillah. So we recorded this live in his office, so the audio might not be as sharp as you're used to, but I think the conversation, I call it a conversation, but really I just let Rabbi Sager talk and expound and share, and it was just such an honor to listen to him. This is part one of a two-part conversation. We couldn't leave it at that, and hopefully, Holy One willing, there will be more. So thank you once again for being here to listen, and now let's hear my conversation/interview with Rabbi Steve Sager. Shalom, Rabbi Sager. Thank you so much for sitting down with me today.
Well, shalom, shalom, Eliana. Thank you for the invitation. A chance that we have to talk together about prayer, something in which we both have a deep and a high interest at the same time, is wonderful.
I've learned so much about tefillah from you, not just by talking with you about it, but by being in shared prayer spaces with you, which I think has been incredibly powerful. And I'm wondering if we could just start there. Say tefillah, what does it mean to you? What does it evoke for you? What is the power that is in that word?
Well, I actually think I'd like to back up a little bit to what you had to say at the beginning so graciously about learning from me just in the shared prayer space, which I think is where we learn most of what we learn about tefillah, about how to be a ba'alat tefillah, how to be a ba'al tefillah for not only a shaliach tzibur, but a ba'al or a ba'alat tefillah, by which I mean one who has some mastery of the idea of tefillah. Because tefillah is more than just what's in the prayer book. The prayer book is only the part that's scored for the mouth. If you think about looking at a musical score, it's only the part that's scored for the mouth, but the part that's scored for the seichel, or the part that's scored for the neshama or the nefesh, is not written in the prayer book. That's the scratch and sniff stuff that you have to get in other kinds of ways. You get it from me, by which I am greatly honored. I get it from you. We get it from the group that we share. We modulate our voices. We get energy. We get affect from all of the people who share the space with us and who make us better prayers, if I can say it that way. Two of my greatest prayer teachers are teachers to whom I only listened. They never taught me a single word of the tefillah, not grammatically, not syntactically, not the phrasing of it or the pronunciation of it. One of them was Zalman Schachter, Alav HaShalom, who had a voice that was like a cello when he sang. And he had the ability to have the conversation with God and a conversation deep within himself. That will lead us to talk about what tefillah is in a more technical way. But I would daven with him. He was part of the minyan at the Germantown Jewish Center in Philadelphia, where I spent a lot of years in rabbinical school. And one of his good friends and another minyaneer was Rabbi Art Green, who taught me a tremendous amount about prayer, but unlike Zalman, couldn't sing. Art has, sheyichye, he should live and be well. Art has no ability to carry a tune, but to listen to him and to look at him is to get the prayer experience. This is not recitation. This is not something memorized to be recited like you before your 6th grade teacher or whatever it was when you last had to actually memorize Daniel Webster's prayer to the Virginia House of Commons or whatever, the introduction to the Canterbury Tales or whatever. Art was conversing. So these two great masters of prayer, one with a great voice and one without the voice. But without the voice, you would focus on what the conversation actually was. And you would learn to converse. And you'd learn that there's something that you want to say. And if you add the voice and its affect, and you add the conversation in a deep way, then you end up getting more than just the part that's scored for the mouth. That's just on the page. But the rest of it you get because you have breathed it in, because you've experienced it, because you've been moved by it, because you cry over it, and so on. What I started to say in speaking, I think, about Zalman, talking about the inner prayer and the outer prayer as being perhaps a lead-in to a more technical understanding or foundational technical understanding of prayer. I would say it this way, that the Hebrew verb at which the word prayer originates, palal, pe lamed lamed, means to weigh, to judge, to adjudge something, to balance it out in your two hands, to say, well, there's this and then there is that. Re'o panecha lo pilalti, Jacob says to his son Joseph at the end of his life before he blesses the grandchildren. He looks to his son and he says, I never reckoned on seeing you again. Lo pilalti. I never adjudged that it was a possibility in the world. A technical and less poetic use of the word palal would be in Exodus, where two men have been fighting and they knock into a woman who tragically loses her pregnancy because of it. And the one who's responsible for the accident is supposed to notain biflilim, which is to say, let's judge how far along her pregnancy was. What had she endured with? What had she lived? And so on. What was the growth, the ripening emotionally and physically, and so on. So palal, no need to go into more details, but if you think about tefillah as being the adjudging, as being the reckoning that happens both inside and outside, both within you and also beyond you, then you have a pretty good framework, I think, for what we mean or what is useful when we think about tefillah. It goes way beyond the thing that is recited. It goes to the reciter and the recitee, I suppose, the recipient. And just so the infinitive of the verb, lehit palel, that's part of the magic, because that Hebrew verb form means introspectively or intrapersonally or interpersonally, right? Lehit labesh means to dress yourself. Lehit bonen means to contemplate. Lehit ra'ot means we will see each other again. Lehit katev means let's correspond. So when you say lehit palel, are you talking about a conversation, as it were, that goes on inside yourself? Yes. Are you talking about one that goes on outside yourself? Yes. Which is it? Well, it is both at the same time, if you let it be, or if you cultivate the habit, the possibility for it to be both. It can be both.
Talk about more of what you mean by the recipient, right? A conversation necessitates partners. So where does that lie for you?
Well, it means talking. It can mean talking to God. It can mean talking to myself. It can really mean both. It can really raise the question, if we wanted to, as the Polish poet Miłosz would say, dance on the edge of heresy. But not really, because we don't have to be heretical. We can just be in the company of the mystical masters of Judaism, or even the ancient rabbinic masters of Judaism, to say that God resides within. So to whom are you speaking? Sometimes it really helps to address something to that which is bigger than yourself and outside yourself, because you want to be wrapped in the whole world, or some aspect of the world that is outside yourself. Sometimes you want to curl up in a little ball inside yourself. And either way, you might be reaching to your potential. If I say, Sim shalom tova uvracha, am I asking God from the outside to give us peace? Or am I asking my innermost self, which lies curled up in potential but hasn't been activated in the world? Am I asking that piece of me, urging that piece of me? At a moment when I feel like I'm reaching for the best of myself, is that where prayer is coming from? Is that where prayer is addressed to? So let's say either way, it's talking to that which is bigger than myself and beyond myself. The paradox is that sometimes it's also within myself.
Is there a metaphor, a nickname, or an idea of God that has been particularly resonant for you lately?
I hope that when you edit this, that you'll let the silence stand, because the silence is part of the answer. I really have to flip through my Rolodex of of names, how it is that I'm talking to God. The impulse to live, God as the impulse to live. And I say it with tears in my eyes, because I'm living with pancreatic cancer. And so to think of God as Mechaye, as the Mechaye, God's a Mechaye, you know, or Mechaye Hametim, but really a Mechaye, a life giver. That's really it. That's really it. And the tears running down my cheeks right now have nothing to do with sadness, but rather the opposite. Because I feel like I pray with joy and intensity. By the way, these days I have not been putting on tefillin. It has been too much for me to manage. Although I'm thinking, after attending some minyanim in the honor of a bris, or the honor of a bar mitzvah, or whatever it might be, of late, I'm thinking about what I should be doing in terms of honoring decades of putting on tefillin. Maybe even just to put them on and take them off, is good enough. For me, these days, the mindfulness, prayer/mindfulness, comes by saying Modeh ani lefanecha. That I say every morning, but I never used to. It's sort of taken the place, that plus Shema Yisrael has sort of taken the place of a full davening. But it's a statement that I make when I feel like I've gotten myself together. Sometimes to get up in the morning is not to feel so coherent. But when I feel like, okay, this is it, I'm on the road to my morning, I say it. Modeh ani lefanecha. I've avoided calling it a prayer because I'm not quite sure what to call it. I think it feels like a prayer to me, an acknowledgement, prayer as acknowledgement and celebration. It's definitely not a bracha, deliberately constructed so as not to say Baruch, so that you could say it when you first wake up in the morning if you're a frum person and so on. But that's my prayer experience. It's taken us a little bit farther away than maybe you were thinking, from the name of God that informs my prayer, even when I'm in the synagogue, that God is Mechaye. It evokes in me, I could pull it off the shelf, but that wouldn't help your podcast, and it wouldn't help, and it wouldn't even help you, because you know what the Siddur looks like. But there are certain Kabbalistic oriented Siddurim that have a Yud Hey Vav Hey with a Hey kind of chuppah-like, with another name of God written underneath it.
Wow, that sounds beautiful.
And so I envision that Yud Hey Vav Hey with the Hey extended like a chuppah with Mechaye written underneath it.
That's so beautiful. And definitely after we record, I would love to take a picture of that so that we can put it in the notes. No, actually, because we talk a lot, or at least I talk a lot on this show and in general, about how Yod Hey Vav Hey within itself has so much meaning, and also leaves so much room open for these nicknames, for these other ways of understanding. I'm also thinking about how there seems to be this interplay, and you're talking about it, between the words and the language of the Siddur, Modeh ani is there. It has been handed down to us. The language of Messiah has been handed down to us. And yet prayer as a personal conversation with something that is bigger than you. What is the relationship then in your mind between prayer and liturgy? Why do we have both of them together? Can you have one without the other?
You can have one without the other. You can have prayer, certainly, without liturgy. You can have extemporaneous prayer, which in some traditions, some Jewish traditions, is cultivated in the vernacular. You should speak in the vernacular because that's the language. That's where all the good, colorful language comes from. It's not restricted to the more decorous language and limited vocabulary of the Bible or of the rabbis. Mm-hmm. It's not just lashon naki. It's just not clean language. Mm-hmm. You can have prayer under those circumstances. And there is a great machloket, a great argument, a productive and wondrous argument that travels throughout the Talmud and throughout rabbinic literature about whether prayer needs to have a form in general, never mind a particular language. So you can have prayer without the liturgy, but you can also have liturgy without the prayer. If you come into a synagogue to become a part and take your place as part of a minyan, then you're counted. Whether you're thinking about your shopping list or whether you're thinking about the tefillah or whether you just say amen in a perfunctory fashion, mm-hmm. or whether you understand the words or not, or whether your head or heart might be in it, they can be separated out. And I think for all of us, they are sometimes separated out. Boy, when they come together, it's just such a reunion. It's extremely important and joyful when they come together.
In your mind, then, what does liturgy do to suffuse, bulk up, help us with the prayer part? Because I think for a lot of people, maybe I'm speaking for myself, though it changes constantly. Oftentimes the liturgy is a block to prayer. Mm-hmm. How is it a block and how can it be a help and a support?
Liturgy means the work of the people. It's the stuff of the community. Liturgy is the container for the community. We spill the watery consciousness of the community into the liturgy. And it carries more than my own canteen, my own inner canteen can carry. And perhaps some political or cultural ideas, references, associations that are antithetical to the way in which I live my life. Mm-hmm. Can I say something celebratory? Let's say the great cause célèbre these days has to do with Israel, the state of Israel, the land of Israel, the people of Israel in its own land. Can I engage that liturgy as the voice of the people? Mm-hmm. This is something with which we live. It's also something with which we struggle. Mm-hmm. I might have written it completely out of my prayer book, my inner prayer book. That personal prayer would never occur to me. But as a matter of community, that's a different thing. And it means that my consciousness is forced into a different dimension. That my tefillah is in some ways a judging of, a weighing of all these different things on a personal level, but also reckoning with what they mean on a community level. For the community, this is extremely important. Mechaye hametim, a literal belief in resurrection, a theoretical possibility. Do I hold out possibility that the idea is more than just an idea? Is it metaphorically true or just metaphorically true? Would I like for it to be true? All of these things are a part of the busyness, I think, of the mindful prayer, and they are the stuff of which community is made.
That's so beautiful. I want to take a step back now and ask, I'm wondering about your tefillah journey, may we call it, over your life. Like the ideas that you have about tefillah. Now, we've already heard about your teachers, Reb Salman and Reb Green. Wondering, what are some other people or experiences that have shaped your understanding of tefillah?
Well, in the company of Zalman and Art, there's another teacher, maybe the greatest teacher of my rabbinical school career, who is a wonderful, kind, and thoughtful davener with a lovely tenor voice that threads its way. It knits together your soul, really. It's a voice that breaks your heart and heals it again. And I admire his stance, literally, in praying. His name is Norman. I named the other two, so I name him. His stance, literally, how do you stand before the Amud? How do you stand before the lectern? Where do you place your hands? How do you maintain your position in front of a community or take your place as a member of a community? And what do people get when they look to you and see you? So he joins that group of prayers who have been very influential to me, as do great prayers who have influenced me all the way back to my childhood. The Chazan of the Shul in which I grew up, whose the greatest part of his voice, or the most fiery and precise part of his voice, had, I believe, left him already by the time I got to him. But his face was so kind and his intention was so pure that it was like looking at an angel, if I can extend myself that far to say it and use another term that we haven't talked about. And I always had the sense that he was looking at me. So that was extremely powerful and penetrating for me, as were the voices of all of my friends in USY, with whom I would daven every Shabbos morning. I came from a shul of very knowledgeable children, very well-educated children, and we could all daven. By the time we were in the 7th grade, we could daven the whole Shabbos.
What shul was this?
A shul called Har Zion in Silver Spring, Maryland. And I can still see the faces of some of my friends, necks straining, veins bulging as they would sing Hallel, for example. And to be a part of that group was very, very important for me. I remember as a young child going to shul. I think I was probably 3 or 4 years old, judging from the shul. I remember the shul that I went to for Rosh Hashanah during those years, and we never went there again. It wasn't really a shul. It was the second floor of a bank building across the street from the apartment where I lived in my earliest years. And I remember men in white standing around the table and singing whatever they were singing that I didn't know. And I remember saying to my cousin Mark, who was sitting next to me on the bench, well, they're singing their prayers. do you have a prayer that you say? And he said, yes, when I go to sleep at night, I have a prayer that I say. And I said, I do also. Let's sing our prayers while they're singing their prayers. So there I was, intermingling whatever the prayers were that they were singing. And I don't know what part of the liturgy they were singing at the time, but there I was. Father, we thank thee for the night and for the pleasant morning light. And I sang my prayer. So an impulse to join the prayer and to make myself into a prayer in a public space where everybody was dedicated to that task was important to me. I would say that in terms of the power of liturgy, some years later, 6, 7 years later, I was maybe 10 years old. I went to shul Rosh Hashanah time, and I remember seeing in big block letters in the middle of the line of the Unetane Tokef in the Silverman conservative prayer book, prayer and repentance and charity avert the evil decree. And I thought, uh-oh, evil decree. Have I done enough of these things? Am I going to survive the year? And I remember going home and taking out a book of Hebrew letters that my grandpa had given me. Another great prayer influence in my life, about whom I can tell you some. But I remember taking the book off the shelf, along with some onion skin paper, and finding the tzadeh and the dalet and the kof and the hay, and tracing out the word tzedakah. Because if I wasn't doing tzedakah, I could at least write the word out on Rosh Hashanah. So taking tefillah very seriously, or the words of tefillah very seriously at that point.
It actually reminds me of something that a rabbi friend of mine brought to me this year, and I'd actually love your take on it, which is that a child in a class he was teaching, young child, came up to him, or maybe even spoke after the class and said, there's a book of life and a book of death. Well, what if I'm written in the book of death this year? What if I'm not written in the book of life? Very scared. Because I think part of the challenge of liturgy is a theology may or may not be so comfortable for us these days. So I'm wondering, what might you tell that child or their family? And what do you do nowadays with a piece of liturgy that kind of calls out to be taken seriously, but maybe not literally?
I would say that prayer language is, in various stages and turns, metaphorical and concrete, and that children are, or adults, oftentimes challenged by which way to go. Mm-hmm. And I think that we don't have enough ways of approaching prayer. We haven't made it into enough of a learning laboratory. I think that praying from the place of a Beit Midrash, praying from the place of the ongoing study project, which is the heart of Judaism, that's where the great prayers come from. Mm. And I don't mean you have to be sitting in a room called Beit Midrash, but there should be time for a person to reflect in a serious and studious way with somebody else or with other people about these kinds of things, about these issues, these matters. And that Kenelecha chaver, get yourself a companion, means be with somebody with whom you can daven, and you can share these kinds of questions and concerns. Help me clarify this language. Help me get a handle on this language. I think that I would say to that child, sometimes you're thinking about living and life, and sometimes you think about dying and you think about death. And if you're at a funeral, you're thinking about death. And if it's almost wintertime and the trees have shed their leaves and the colors have bled away in a sense, then you're thinking about frailty. And what other kinds of words do you associate with death? How about frailty, or a shift in imagination, and Michaye HaMetim, or other, the book of death is a book that explores that. It doesn't mean you're going to die, but it's a book that explores that image and the words that surround it and the feelings that come over you when you think about it. But don't think about it in terms of I'm going to die if I haven't done this or that. That's too linear for prayer. Prayer is not so linear. If you want to think about it when you're getting ready to cross the street, that's helpful. You're looking both ways. But in the prayer world, it's too linear. You have to be more expansive.
I really love what you said about wanting space to make prayer a laboratory, or to be able to experiment, experience, explore what prayer is, because that's why we call this space, this show, this whatever this is becoming, the Light Lab. I don't know if you knew that that's what this podcast was called, actually.
Actually, I never did.
Right. So you got it exactly.
Juliana wants to talk about prayer. I'm there. I'm going to talk about prayer. I don't care what she calls it.
Well, I love it, but the idea of a laboratory came up naturally for you. What would you want to teach or engage in? What would you want someone to know about prayer? Let's say, first of all, if they were entering a communal prayer setting and they might not know what's going on, or they might not be sure what to do, what would you tell them? And then I want to ask, what would you tell someone who wants to start on a journey of the prayer side, not the liturgy side? So first, like the liturgical communal space and the personal space.
I remember one time being in a gym to which I belonged, and I was riding a stationary bike, and a woman got on the treadmill next to me and was very tentative. She was dressed for it. She had a color coordinated workout outfit, and she was clearly ready to be ready for it, ready to be into it. But she didn't quite know how to get her footing or how to adjust and so on. And she asked me, "Can you help me?" And I said, "Yeah, the best thing I can tell you is be prepared to look like an idiot for about 5 minutes."
Yeah.
You're going to get it, but not if you try to be perfect at it at the beginning. So step into it. I know how to say Baruch. So people are saying Baruch. Say Baruch. Say it loud. You know, Baruch Atah. I know how to say those two words. I know how to say Amen. I can look around and I can see when people are standing up and when they're not standing up. Do it. There are some people in the community who are pulling their prayer shawls over their heads at a certain point in the service. I wonder what that's about. Not everybody seems to be doing it, but it looks rather impressive. I think I'll try that. Then you get to find out what it feels like under there. And I suppose there we're kind of getting to the bridge between the form and the feeling of it. You feel like what's going on underneath there, how you can be with somebody and also alone. So liturgy, yeah, you have to, if you're interested in the power of community, then you have to apprentice yourself to the canon. There are some things that you just simply have to know. Ritual loves erudition. Ritual loves it when you know what you're doing. When you get called to the Torah for an aliyah, it's a real good idea to worry about whether you know what to do and to prepare yourself for it, because ritual loves its own unfolding in a fluid manner, commensurate with the kind of respect that the community deserves. So, yeah, there's some things that you just simply have to learn, whether you have earned it or just learned it. You know, take the fringes of your tallis, somebody might whisper to you, and touch right where I'm showing you. And never mind, do it, you know? And then take those fringes and touch them to your lips, kiss them. Really? Yeah. Hold on to the handles and say this. There's some things that we start doing perfunctorily, and maybe we feel like an idiot for 5 minutes, or we feel very self-conscious about it. At the same time, we need to allow ourselves to learn what it means to be standing in front of a community and holding on to the handles of the scroll that contains our sacred story, or being in a community where people are pulling, just to stay in the world of tefillah, have their prayer shawls pulled up over their heads. You start to learn something, as I said before, about what it means to be inside and outside. And you can bring your own, not only that, but you can and should bring your own thoughts, your own deepest thoughts and fears and hopes to this particular place. And understand, if the cues are powerful enough, and if the community actions are powerful enough, protective enough, you might feel that this is a space that's strong enough for you to relax here and to let some things out. Somebody once came to me, a member of the congregation of some long standing, and said, I've been thinking a lot about it, and I really need to leave this synagogue because I don't know any Hebrew and I just don't feel comfortable. And I said to him, well, as you look around at other synagogues for a place where you're comfortable, please try to find a place for yourself where you're also comfortable being uncomfortable. This is not just about being comfortable.
Yeah.
It's not a place where there is only the light and the stained glass windows. There's turbulence here, and you must be able to engage it.
If you're leading a tefillah experience, if you're davening from the Amud, what is your hope for the people that are in the room?
My hope is that I can open up the Siddur in a way that gives them the Siddur being the order of prayer, the prayer book itself that contains the liturgy, that gives them some sense and understanding, a deep understanding, even if it's not a literal one, of what's going on. And sometimes that happens, or it will happen because of, or can happen because of affect. Mm-hmm. How is it that I reach into the world of my great prayer teachers like Art Green and say, Sim shalom tuva uvracha, chen v'chesed v'rachamim. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Can we just all have that? And people might not understand the words, but they'll get the affect. And to me, that is part of what the Shaliach Tzibur, what the representative of the community needs to be able to do. And I hope I can do that. I hope I can do it with a pleasant melody also. Mm-hmm. And I will oftentimes daven in English, something else that I learned from Zalman Schachter, and switch back and forth from Hebrew to English to give people a sense that there can be a seamless flow between one and the other. Hospitality. These people have come to a space that they've entrusted me to furnish. Mm-hmm. Let me furnish it in a comfortable way.
And in your mind, I'm not even going to ask about the importance of tefillah. It's something deeper than that. How can a relationship with tefillah, a relationship with liturgy, a relationship with prayer, how might it change someone's life? Or what is the change that it might put into the world? Why does it matter, all this stuff, to you?
Tefillah, the idea of tefillah, the dynamics of tefillah help me to do the adjudging that's bound up with the root of the word, and help me move from imagination and personal thought out to a place where I can actually interact with people and do some good. And so I think that it is foundational in that kind of way to get up in the morning and to stretch and to say, blessed are you who opens the eyes of the blind, not only means that I open my eyes to the sunlight and my pupils have to adjust, and I'm not even really sure what time it is until I can see the clock. It means not only that, but it means, blessed are you who opens the eyes of the blind. That there are people who can't see, who won't see in the world, and I might be able to help that. Blessed are you who raises up those who are bowed down, just so. An arc between the personal kind of stretching and overcoming yesterday's tennis game or exercise and the need to help people stand up straight in the world. And the ideas that lie behind tefillah that lie just where imagination is hinged to action are the ideas on which the world, I think, is based.
Do you have a prayer for us today? Not just you and me, but whoever is listening to the podcast. What might your prayer be for us today?
There's a wonderful story in the Talmud that has two parts. I won't tell you the whole story. It sounds like we've reached a place to put a bookmark in the in our conversation. But I will tell you this, that when the curtain goes up on this story, the question is asked, from what verse in the Bible can I learn that God prays? Mm-hmm. And that's the way the question is asked. It's not asked whether God prays or not. That is apparently a foregone conclusion. Mm-hmm. But how can I find a biblical verse that would find the idea and found the idea that God prays? And a verse is given. And then the next question is asked by another generation and in another place of people who take that challenge very seriously, and they say, well, what does God pray? And the answer is that God prays. God's tefillah is Yehi ratzon milefanai. May it be my own will. Yeah, because on that level, prayer is introspection. It's inside God. May it be my own will that my attribute of compassion take precedence over my other attributes, and that I treat all of my children and everybody with compassion. So I think that would be today's prayer.
Beautiful. Rabbi Sager, as always, it is such a blessing and a prayerful experience for me to learn from you and be in dialogue with you. And as you can tell, listeners, we have many more things to talk about. So we will be back. But for now, just thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure. And thanks again for the invitation.
And thank you so much for listening. Our podcast is edited by Christy Dodge of Allowbee. Thank you so much to Yafet for being our show notes and social media extraordinaire. Next week, we're back with our series on the Amidah, diving into the first blessing of the text itself. So very excited to do that. And stay tuned in the next couple of weeks for part 2 of my conversation with Rabbi Sager, as well as some exciting announcements. Have a beautiful and blessing-filled week, everyone. See you soon.